Where next for Bangladesh after the Supreme Court rejects calls to remove Islam from the constitution? Hello and welcome to the Newsmakers with me, Imran Garda. It's a decision that was 28 years in the making. A petition filed in 1988 against Islam being Bangladesh's state religion has finally been heard by the country's highest court, and within minutes it was dismissed. Bangladesh was born in 1971 after a war of independence with Pakistan, and secularism was adopted as a fundamental principle. But that changed in 1988 when a military ruler made Islam the state religion of the mostly Muslim country. Following a series of attacks on secular and atheist bloggers, the Supreme Court decided it would finally hear a challenge to that decision. But opinion in the country is deeply divided, and many, including the opposition Jamaat-e-Islami party, have called for strikes and protests against the hearing. Today's newsmaker is Bangladesh, as we ask whether there's room in the country's constitution for both Islam and secularism. Well, joining me now from London to discuss Bangladesh's religious identity is Abbas Islam Khan, a human rights activist and barrister, and Arif Rahman, a Bangladeshi British secular blogger. Thanks, gentlemen, for joining us. Arif Rahman, let me start with you. It was dismissed. Are you disheartened, disillusioned by that?
Not really. I wanted to clarify a few bits. This writ petition that was, you said it was dismissed after just half an hour of hearing. Unfortunately, the real fact is the petition didn't even go into hearing because it was dismissed based on a technical term. They called locus standi, means the people who have submitted the writ petition back in 1988. Now, today, they don't have the proper rights because the committee that actually submitted the writ petition is called the Autocrat and Communalism Prevention Committee. Back in those days, we were under military dictatorship. Nowadays, we are under democratic system. So that's why the justice system has actually rejected the petition based on technicality. It was not even subject to be submitted. So if somebody says that it was rejected because the Bangladesh government or the legal system has upheld Islam to be remaining as a component of Bangladesh constitution, that is actually a wordplay in my view.
Okay, so the petition went, and for 30 minutes they looked at it, however you want to technically describe it. For 30 minutes they looked at it and they threw it out. Am I correct then?
They threw it out because it was not technically submissible.
Okay,
that's what
fair enough. Okay, so that was the reason, but it took them 30 minutes.
Content of the writ petition.
Okay, so I don't want to get stuck in the semantics of this. I want to move forward. Did you want it to be overturned? Did you want Article 12 Article 2A to be overturned in favor of Article 12, because there seems to be a contradiction in the Constitution? Article 2A says Islam is the official religion. Article 12 says secularism is the principle of the state.
Exactly. So this is the thing. Bangladesh Constitution originally in 1972 was the perfect constitution in those days. But in 1988, the military dictatorship, to save itself, introduced Islam or use of religious fundamentalism to actually contain the movement against the military dictatorship. And that was the reason Islam was introduced into not because Islam was part of our constitution from the very beginning. So, and also in our constitution, there is ample and multiple spaces for secularism and, for humanity. So when this Islam as a state religion remains, it causes more problem for the rest of the country. So it needs to go. And at some point, more writ petitions are going to come in, and eventually it's going to be thrown out.
Okay, Abbas Islam Khan, do you believe it needs to go?
No, I don't, because I believe in the will of the people. Because if you look at the Article 7(1) of Bangladesh's constitution, it clearly is mentioned there that it is the people of the Bangladesh who holds the power, and in Article 7(2) it's says the will of the people of the Bangladesh are the constitution, is the constitution, would be expressed in the constitution. So I think majority of the Bangladeshi people, they want Islam to be there as a state religion. So that's why I think it needs to be there in our constitution. And also, your guest said previously that in 1972, secularism were included in Bangladesh's constitution. But you need to think about the historical context as well. Secularism was not there before 1972, before the enactment of the constitution. And that part of the constitution was not the will of the people. That part of the constitution was basically the will of the 34 members who drafted the constitution. It was recommended by the foreign expert who wanted the secularism to be inserted in the constitution. Also, before the constitution was enacted, it was heavily relied on India's constitution.
Okay, now Abbas, I don't want to get involved in technicalities. Let's look at the current context in the country right now. So you have converts to Christianity being killed, atheist bloggers being hacked to death, Shias are persecuted, Ahmadis are persecuted, and so on and so forth. There's a feeling, and there's a lot of factual evidence to show that minorities are not protected in this country. There were those who believed that taking Islam out as the official religion of the country might help solve that problem, because maybe it's de facto and not de jure. There seems to be blasphemy laws in effect in Bangladesh. How do you propose, Abbas, sorting out this problem of minorities not being protected in a country that says that Islam is the only way we're going to go?
Now, the problem with the minorities, Islam is a state religion for 28 years. But it's more of a concern, this attack on the minorities are very recent, last 3-4 years. So last 28 years, Bangladesh lived peacefully. There were unity between different religions. But very suddenly, after the secular government came into power, these attacks on minority became an issue. Now think about it. The important fact about these attacks on the minorities are, these are mainly not, the religion is not involved in most of the attacks. The thing that is involved is land grabbing, political interest, or personal vengeance. These are the main issues.
They're hacking people to death. I mean, they're killing people because they changed their religion or because they are deemed to have insulted Islam. How can you say religion has nothing to do with this, Abbas?
Now think about it.
Religion is directly used, by the way.
Rise of extremism. Rise of extremism is not a Bangladeshi issue only. It's a global issue.
Oh no, but we're talking about Bangladesh today. But we're talking about Bangladesh today. That's why we called you onto the show. So I'm saying people are getting killed in the name of Islam. How can you say it has nothing to do with Islam?
No, because you have to think about it. I told you before, it's more of a political issue.
Okay.
Because rather than trying the culprits, rather than ensuring that the victim getting justice, is the government and the secular people, the secular intellectuals, they're taking political interest out of this issue.
Sure, let's get a response from Arif Rahman. Arif Rahman, it's the secular people's fault.
Well, I wanted to correct Abbas's two misstatements. He said that secularism was not introduced in our constitution before 72. Our Bangladesh as a country was only liberated in 1971, and 72's constitution is the first constitution. Bangladesh, when it was liberated from Pakistan, another Islamist country, Bangladesh was formed based on those secular notions. So secularism was the very beginning, was part of Bangladesh actually. And then Abbas said that this attack on minorities is only a few years phenomena, which is absolutely a false statement, because when Bangladesh was liberated, there was 26% Hindus in Bangladesh. Now we only have like 7%. This is a sharp decline, and that is a result of continuous persecution of the minority people, and they're driving them out. I can say that there is motives behind it, but the machinery that is used to actually drive them out and to persecute them is religion. Even this week, earlier in Sylhet, there was a mosque that used its megaphone middle of the night to radicalize people, who then congregated and burned a Hindu family's house and property. And the mosque itself is responsible for radicalizing and making those people do those things. How can you avoid these things? So blaming it on secular people is actually is a mistaken way, and this needs to stop. And we need to address the problem that we have at the moment is that people's core faith, their belief to their God, is being used for political means by political parties and extremists and fundamentalists.
Arif, do you think that the Awami... I'm sorry, Abbas, I just want to ask Arif a question. Do you believe that the Awami League has tried, they've tried to emphasize secular values here? Are they out of touch with the masses, as is being suggested by Abbas Islam Khan, that they are at odds with what the people want? That sort of democracy means people want Islam and not secular values.
This is the thing. What Abbas claimed, I actually forgot to mention, Abbas claimed that people want Islam to be part of the state missionary, which is also a mistaken form of the truth, because people loves Islam or people obeys Islam as their personal core belief. The Islam in Bangladesh that we have is so much different than the Islam that we have in Pakistan, in Saudi Arabia. Bangladesh's Islam is, people's Muslim are really from the softer version of Islam that has come from like hundreds of years. This is not the radical version, and they do not want political version of Islam implemented in Bangladesh. That's why the political parties, Islamic political parties like Jamaat-e-Islami barely gets any seats in national elections. Although 90% of the people are Muslim these days, it's only the few or a group of extremists that are abusing Islam and trying to do all these mishaps and giving Islam a bad name. And Abbas is not actually helping the Islamists.
Arif, you're on the hit list, aren't you, of the 84 people that they're after?
Yes, I'm at the very top at the moment.
Okay, let me pose the question then to Abbas. Abbas, does Arif deserve to be on that hit list of people who deserve to be killed for insulting Islam?
Obviously not. I want to clarify. Obviously not. He shouldn't be on the hit list, and I agree with that. That there's a rise of extremism in Bangladesh. But before
there shouldn't be any hit list.
Explaining more on that part, I want to talk about the two issues that Arif talked about before. Firstly, the Constitution came into effect in 1972, 16 December. What was the Constitution before 1972, 16 December? That was the Proclamation of Independence. There was nothing mentioned about secularism in the Proclamation of Independence. There were three principles. There were equality, social justice, and dignity and human dignity. These were the three issues that were three fundamental principles in the Proclamation of Independence. Also, if you look at the historical context, the 6-point movement that was started by the Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, the father of the nation, there was nothing mentioned about secularism in that 6-point movement.
We can debate about the word itself
on,
for the next hour. I'm going to stop you there for a second. Abbas, I'm going to stop you for a second. I have a very simple question for you. Is Bangladesh a safe place for the Shia, for Ahmadis, for Christians, for atheists, for Hindus, and anyone else who's not a Sunni Muslim, Abbas?
It is a safe place. To be honest, it is a very safe place, and it is one of the safest places in the world. Although I admit there are some situations, there are some incidents that are going on, and it is a secular government who claim themselves as a secular. They have to deal with that issues, and we need unity, we need cohesion, we need to think about all those divisions that we have at the moment. We have to find out a way to tackle this extremism.
Okay.
So extremism is not only the Islamic extremism that's a problem in Bangladesh, it's also secular extremism which is creating division within Bangladesh, which is like causing all those problems, that persecution of the Islamists in Bangladesh at the moment, imprisonment of hundreds and thousands of students of Islam.
Okay, Arif,
so these are the reasons. These are the reasons of this
the
campaign
secular
of the
extremists are imprisoning hundreds.
Extremists.
Okay, the secular extremists are imprisoning hundreds and thousands of Islamists as well.
Sorry?
Sorry, I didn't get the question. It was lots of noise.
Abbas says the secular extremists are imprisoning hundreds of thousands of Islamists as well.
No, it's because of the campaign of the secular extremists, the secular government, the government who's ruling the country and claiming they're a secular country, secular party.
Abbas, you made a point. I'm posing it to Arif. You made a point. You said the secular extremism and the imprisonment of Islamists. I'm posing it to Arif. Arif?
I don't understand what is secular extremism. If you are asking, when you talk about cohesion of people, you should include people, general human beings, rather than not based on their religion, caste, or creed, or anything. If you are asking for cohesion, you should be including everybody. Now, if you are wanting Islam to be a state religion, and on the other hand, you want cohesion, how can you actually achieve that? And secular extremism, asking for cohesion again, but not based on religion. So if you're calling it that extremism, then you are actually not doing the good job, because the real extremists, they kill people, they bomb people.
Yeah.
And secular extremists don't do anything like that. So how are you comparing them in the same level? I don't understand.
So final question then for Abbas. There's a big difference between having a website and criticizing beliefs you don't like and hacking someone to death, right? The two are not the same, are they?
No, they are not the same, obviously. What you have to understand in this situation is there is a global rise of extremism, and what's going on in Bangladesh, there's a persecution going on the Islamists. There is the freedom of expression. There's no freedom of expression at the moment. The media, Islamic media, they have been shut off. There's obstruction going on in organizing Islamic conferences. So all these issues add up, and when the secular extremists, they're creating division, they're not talking about religious neutrality, they're talking about banning Islam, banning Islamic practices like hijab, they're talking about banning adhan, the prayer to call. So these are the issues that the extremists are using to recruit.
You mentioned it a few times. Okay, you mentioned it a few times now, and I have to give Arif an opportunity to respond to that. In 15 seconds, please, I'll let this be the final word.
When Abbas says that there is obstruction on Islamic movements being organized, think about it. Ijtima. Do you know about Ijtima? The second largest religious congregation after Hajj happens in Bangladesh. It grows so big that now it has to be done in two separate occasions. If Bangladesh government was stopping these things,
what about the dozens of Islamic conferences which were not let them organize?
Okay. Well, extremism should be controlled.
Okay, you made the point.
If you're promoting extremism, then it's not good.
Okay,
they should be controlled, and maybe government is trying to control the extremism.
Okay, I've got to put a lot on this because we are out of time. Gentlemen, time's our enemy. We are totally out of time. I've got to move on to another segment. Thank you very much for agreeing to come on the show, Arif Rahman and Abbas Islam Khan. Thanks a lot.